What's up, guys? Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 58, and this one is especially good. Sometimes I put them out there, and they're trash. Let's face it. Sometimes I just don't get that many good hands and have to put out a video. But this one, it's going to be pretty exciting from the start to finish, and hope you guys enjoy it. Let's go ahead and get to it. March Madness and St. Patrick's Day, so the Red Rock room is busy. The must-move game looks amazing. One player in particular is in there who's a very successful businessman, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet, loves to gamble, doesn't mind losing, just enjoys playing poker. One of my favorite people to play against. If you ever see me post on Instagram that I'm playing 5-10 at Red Rock, it's likely because he's in there too, mixing it up. I take my seat in the 2-5 here and buy in for 1,000. In the second hand that I'm dealt, I pick up pocket aces in the hijack. The player who I was talking about earlier opens a 25 from under the gun. We get into it with him a lot, so from this point on, we'll just refer to him as player A. Fold to my buddy Sean in middle position. He 3-bets to 100. Dream situation. It's on us now. We cold 4-bet to 225. Player A calls for 200 more, and my buddy Sean folds. We're heads up. Don't try to put player A on any type of range. As I mentioned earlier, he loves to gamble and might call with any 2 pre-flop. He seems to especially take pleasure in beating me, so I think he's going to have an even wider range. The dealer puts out King-Queen 4 with 2 diamonds. Player A checks. Doesn't look like a great flop for pocket aces in a 4-bet pot. Could certainly be up against pocket kings or queens. Could also be up against ace-king or a ton of other holdings from this particular player that I'm ahead of. I bet 200. Player A rips it in my face. Goes all in. It's 575 more to me. He's got me covered. Against anyone else, I might just fold, but against this guy, I'm on the fence about whether to call or not.
What are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it!
Jesus, Shia, you've got to calm down, man. Just a game of poker, okay? But, yeah, I call. The board runs out with the 6 and 7 of spades. The opponent turns over King-Queen offsuit. Called our 4-bet out of position, crushed us on the flop, drilled 2 pair, and we didn't improve, so he takes it down. We had plenty of 2 pair outs, but we just couldn't get there. Damn it, Shia, you really fucked me here. Within 5 minutes of playing, we're stuck at 1,000. No way we're leaving this game. We reload for another 1,000 and get back after it. In this hand, we're dealt pocket 8s in middle position. It's a straddle pot. We raised to 35. The button calls, the big blind calls as well. The flop comes Jack 9-7 with 2 diamonds. The big blind leads out for 50, slightly less than half the size of the pot. I'm stuck, really don't want to fold. Seems like calling is just lighting money on fire unless I hit a miracle 10. Even if I hit it, I could still be beat. I don't think the big blind will lead out here with a hand like 2 pair or better. He could be weak. I blockers to the nuts. I take the higher variance route. Maybe not the best play, but I raise to 165. This gives us the opportunity to win the hand without making the straight. The button folds, the big blind shifts it in my face for 700 more. That's the end of that one for us. We fold. I overhear the big blind say that he had 1 pair and a gut shot, so he probably had Jack 10. I don't absolutely hate my play, but with the board that connected, raising the flop is going to induce a lot of calls or re-raises, so it's not that great. I was just on tilt, wanted to make a play, and unfortunately it didn't work out. I'm sure I'll hear about it in the comment section. We add on for 300 more, and we get a chance to redeem ourselves with pocket 8s. It's a straddle pot. We're under the gun +1 and raised to 35. Middle position player calls. Player A calls on the button. Small blind calls as well. The 4 of us see the flop, and it comes Queen 6-6 with 2 hearts. Not a terrible flop. Small blind checks. We take a stab at it and bet 55. Middle position player calls, the button folds, and the small blind calls. There are 3 of us now. Could be up against 2 flush draws, but most likely we're behind, and we're just going to be done with the hand. The turn makes it easy. It's the 5 of hearts. Terrible card for us. We all check. The river is the 10 of diamonds. The small blind bets 75. I fold, and the other player folds as well. So we're not off to a very good start. We're in for 2,300. We've got 900 in front of us, so we're stuck. 14. It's It's okay though, we've got ace king of hearts under the gun +2. We open to 20. The hijack calls, player A calls in the small blind, the big blind calls as well. Once again, we go 4 ways to the flop. The dealer puts out king 8-6 rainbow, player A leads out for 40. The big blind folds, I just flat, I don't want to scare off my opponent. The hijack calls as well, the 3 of us make it to the turn, and it's the deuce of diamonds. The small blind makes it 40 again, looks like a decent spot to raise, I bet 200. The hijack folds, the small blind says, I believe I owe you some action, and puts in 160 more. The river is the queen of hearts, not that great of a card because I could definitely be up against king queen. The opponent checks. A lot of times I'll check one street with top pair, top kicker, but against this player I have to go for value. I bet 350. It's a little over half pot. I know this guy doesn't like folding. Shockingly though, he does fold, and to my surprise he shows me a king. I definitely didn't expect that at all. Perhaps I've been showing too many strong hands to him. Need to show him a bluff or two because he's giving me way too much respect and not paying me off in spots where he used to and where he would pay off other players. I make a mental note of it and move on. Next we pick up queen jack of clubs in the small blind. It's a straddle pot. The player under the gun limps in. Player A calls in middle position. The hijack limps. I call. The big blind calls. Since it hasn't been raised, the action goes to the button straddler. He messed it up for everybody and makes it 55. That's not enough. Certainly not folding once player A has shown interest and everyone else has too. I call and everybody else calls. We go 6 ways to the flop with 330 already in the middle. The flop comes 10-8-6 rainbow. Not terrible for us. We have a gutter, 2 overs, and a backdoor flush draw. We check. The players behind us all check as well. The turn is the ace of clubs. We now have a flush draw to go along with the double gutter. I lead out for 135. The bet here gives us the opportunity to win the hand right now, but if we do get called, we'll have plenty of cards that will help us out. Folds to player A, he calls, everyone else folds. I'm really hoping we can make a hand against our opponent, but that's not the case. The river is another 8. We had roughly 127 outs, just a guesstimate, but we bricked all of them. Stuck and Tilted Brad isn't going to give up against this particular opponent after he folded top pair to us in the last hand. I bet 375. My actual hand isn't beating much, but I led turn into 5 other players, which looks extremely strong. I could reasonably have ace 10, trip 8s with 2 clubs like 9-8 of clubs or 8-7 of clubs. Could also have a number of full house combinations. The opponent eventually lays his hand down. Since he made a good laydown against me last hand, I show him the bluff this hand. I want to put some doubt in his mind in the future because usually I have it when I bet big on the river and I don't want him to keep folding to my river bets. We're not doing too badly now. We're only stuck 700. In this one, we get queen jack of clubs again. This time we're on the button. Player A opens a 25 from under the gun +2. The hijack calls. I call. Ordinarily, I might 3-bet this hand, but player A doesn't like to fold pre-flop and we're deep, so if I can make a big hand, we might be able to get paid, especially since we just showed that bluff. The big blind also calls, so we go 4 ways to the flop. It's jack 8-6 rainbow. We have top pair and a few backdoor draws. Player A bets 100. It's a pot-sized bet, pretty big. The hijack folds. I don't see how we can fold here. I call. The big blind folds. Player A and I are heads up. The turn is the 9 of clubs, so if we were behind, then we just picked up a ton of outs. The opponent bets 100 again. Not sure what we're up against, but we're definitely not folding. Raising doesn't seem necessary either. I call. The river is the 10 of clubs. We drilled the flush. Player A leads out for 280. I'm somewhat concerned I could be up against a higher flush. When I make a hand this big and it's hidden like this, I can't be afraid to raise, especially when I just showed this player a bluff earlier and there are 4 to the straight out there. I could easily get a call out of him if he's holding one of the other queens and maybe if he's holding a 7. I raised to 700. It only takes a few seconds before I get the call. I turn over the queen high flush and the opponent turns over pocket 10. So he rivered a set and then called me very light. A lot of it probably had to do with the fact that I showed him the bluff in the previous hand. We get a great run out against the right guy in the right situation and win a pot of nearly 2K to get unstuck. We're up a few hundred. Player A gets moved to the main game, but the must move is still pretty good. Not long after, we get pocket 3s in middle position. It's a straddle pot. Not a lot of 3-betting has gone on in this game so far, so I don't mind opening, whereas ordinarily I might fold from this spot. I bet 35. The hijack calls with a short stack, the button calls, and so does the big blind. So we go 4 ways to the flop. Comes 9-8-3 with 2 clubs. We flop bottom set in a multi-way pot. We're in great shape. The big blind checks. I bet 100. It's a fairly large bet, but there are several other opponents and it's a connected board. Someone should be willing to get involved for this amount. The hijack shoves for 275 total, folds back to me. I call for 175 more. The hijack turns over pocket jacks. We're a huge favorite, but the turn is the queen of clubs and the river is the 10 of spades. So our opponent makes a straight to win it. Nice hand, sir. Nice hand. Secretly, I hate you. Many of the players in the must move leave, so we're playing 4-handed. Here we get dealt pocket queens under the gun and open to 15. The button calls and so does the big blind. The flop comes king 4 deuce with 2 clubs. We all check. The turn is a 10. The big blind bets 20. I raise to 50. This is a showdown raise so that I don't have to call a bet of over 30 on the river. Might even get some better hands to fold. The button folds and the big blind calls. We're heads up. The river is a 7. We both check. The player has pocket 3s and we win. We had what you call in the industry a non-believer. Next we get dealt pocket jacks under the gun in the straddle pot. I open to 35. The small blind calls. We're heads up. The flop is king 8-7. Small blind leads out for 35. Not going to give up that easily. I call. The turn is a 5. He bets 55. Now it's time to possibly consider folding. I just don't wanna. I call. The river is a 10. He bets 50. Seems like he's milking me. I'm not good enough to lay it down. I call. He turns over ace king of hearts and wins the pot. In the very next hand, we're dealt ace 4 offsuit in the big blind. Under the gun limps in. Small blind calls as well. I raise to 20. Both players call. The flop is ace 6-5 with 2 hearts. The small blind checks. I bet 30. Under the gun folds, but the small blind calls, so we're heads up. The turn is another 5 and the small blind checks. This is the same opponent that called my raise on a king high board with pocket 3s. Doesn't seem to have too much respect for my bets, so I go for another value bet. I put out 65. He calls again. Might have some kind of straight draw, a flush draw, or possibly an ace. The river is a third 5. The flush draw gets there. Unless I'm up against quads, 3 6s, or 3 aces, then I've got the best hand. Small blind checks. He only has 100 left. I bet enough to cover him. He goes into the tank. Then he calls. I turn over the hand and win it. So he must have called pretty light. Maybe he had a flush. We get moved to the main game now. We're back to even on the day. We've got about 2,300 in front of us. The game is interesting. Everyone's very deep. It's basically all pros and player A. In one of our first hands at the new table, we pick up pocket kings under the gun and open to 20. 4 players call. The flop comes king, queen, jack. We have top set on a connected board. Can't let anyone have any free cards. We bet 60. Someone should have something they can call with. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Everyone folds. We take it down. Player A leaves shortly after. We play for a little while longer, but it's the worst 2-5 game in Vegas, so it breaks. Time to rack up and head out. That was one of the most interesting sessions I played in a long time. Second hand in, I got stacked, but got it back within a relatively short period of time. So cashed out over 23.34. I tipped the cashier $1, so I ended up winning 33 bucks. I was in for 2,300 and got in a few 2K pots. Ran really well in some spots, ran really bad in others. Didn't really end up making money, but that's it for my St. Patrick's Day here at the Red Rock. That's it for this one, guys. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons if you haven't yet. Definitely helps a lot. And if you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comments section and I'll get back to you. I want to give a big thanks to everybody who's been watching this vlog for a while. It's been a lot of fun to do this. I went through a rough patch in February when I was going on a downswing and my girlfriend and I broke up. But a ton of people reached out, said really nice things in the comment section, or messaged me or emailed me, and a lot of people I talked to you in person. So I just want to say I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And things are definitely going a lot better now. Poker is good. I'm here. This is my house. At some point, I'll give you guys a tour of it. But yeah, life's pretty good. One last announcement is that I've got some hoodies coming out. I'm super excited about it. My brother and my best friend's wife and I, we all spent a ton of time designing it, putting a ton of thought into it. We tried to make it just especially for poker players, and I think it's going to be one of the best hoodies out there available to the poker community. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully they'll come out by the time the series starts. Hope you guys are all doing well. Good luck at the tables, and I'll see you next time.